A recent historian said that a line from the Declaration of Independence is the most important sentence in history. Well, certainly that sentence is exceedingly important, but I agree with those who counter-argue. No, actually, John 3:16 is the most important sentence in history. Meanwhile, the great statement in the Declaration is, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." The Creator has bestowed upon us the right to life. But how can you square that right to life with the supposed right to abortion? We asked Frank Pavone about that recently. He's been a stalwart leader in the pro-life movement for years.
The Declaration of Independence talks about inalienable rights that we've received from God, and first mentioned among those rights is the right to life. And that's the connection between the Declaration and the abortion issue, because abortion denies the right to life. It's not only that it takes life, but it denies that the child in the womb even has that right. So there's obviously a contradiction here. The Declaration further says that this inalienable right is secured by government, and that's the purpose of government, to protect the right to life. That's the same thing as saying that the government must protect that child from the mentality and the procedure of abortion that destroys both that right and that life.
We asked Frank Pavone, are you saying that the Constitution and Declaration of Independence are against abortion? Did the Founding Fathers leave any clues as to what they thought on the matter of abortion and the right to life?
I would definitely say that the abortion ethic is at odds with the Declaration and also with the mind of the founders. You know, many people don't talk about this, but the founders were opposed to abortion. And we have that evidence. We know, of course, that the common law at that time, even before our statutory law was created, considered abortion to be wrong, said that life needs to be protected. And the Founding Fathers said, you know, the protection of life includes before birth as well as after. So the founders are coming from the viewpoint of abortion being wrong. They're coming from the viewpoint that if we say government needs to protect human beings, well, then that should be from the time that human beings begin, when their life starts. So yes, the founders' mindset, as well as what they put in that declaration, is contrary to the abortion mentality.
What about the supposed constitutional right to an abortion, or the Supreme Court decision from 1973 bolstering that idea?
We've looked at the Declaration of Independence as declaring the right to life, and then we know that 11, 12 years later, our Constitution came into being and is the implementation document for the principles that are in the Declaration. So first of all, it doesn't make any sense to think that they would be at odds. If the Declaration is so clear about the right to life, then a Constitution that implements the Declaration is going to secure the right to life as well. Now, if we look at the Constitution, we see the right to life mentioned there also. It's in the 5th and the 14th Amendments. The state may not deprive a person of life without due process of law. You can't just say it's by a woman's choice, a mother's decision, or even a doctor's decision. When we look at the 14th Amendment in particular, that came about at a time when the states were actually strengthening their pro-life laws. They were strengthening them because medical science at that point was showing us much more about the development of the baby in the womb. The science of embryology was blossoming. And by recognizing that that baby is a baby even earlier than most people thought, the laws followed suit and said we have to protect these babies. So it doesn't make any sense that states that would be ratifying the 14th Amendment, which speaks about life being protected, would at the same time think that abortion would be okay, because those same states were making abortion less okay. We look at the Constitution, and there has been a debate over the decades over whether there is a constitutional right to abortion. The Supreme Court in 2022 corrected the very grave mistake, and they called it a grave mistake, that the court made back in 1973 when they said that the Constitution does protect abortion as a right of privacy, a right of choice. They said, look, this is nowhere in the history of the Constitution. This is nowhere in the history of any of the state constitutions. This is nowhere in the academic literature. This is nowhere in any court decisions. It only when it came to the 1970s that they made that terrible mistake. Thank God now we have corrected it.
Here is an excerpt from the Providence Forum documentary film, We the People.
The promise of America not only applies to those who are born, but to the unborn baby as well.
Endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights in the United States of America, all created by a Creator.
The founders say in the preamble to the Constitution that one of the goals of that document is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. From the plain reading of the text, it would seem that the promise of America not only applies to those who are born, but to the unborn baby as well.
Some wonder, what will it take for America to one day recognize the humanity of the unborn and to recognize the right to life mentioned in the Declaration of Independence applies to the baby in the womb as well.
So there's no question, the founding documents of the United States of America are in favor of the right to life, not a right to abortion.
God-given rights are absolutely critical to the success of the American experiment of self-rule under God. Now, what happens when a nation abandons those rights? We saw in the 20th century alone the incredible slaughter of tens of millions of people, often their very own people, when the anti-Christian communists and the anti-Christian Nazis seized power. Human life under such systems has no value because they don't acknowledge that we're made in the image of God. Thomas Jefferson, chief author of the Declaration of Independence, observed in a different writing, quote, "The God who gave us life gave us liberty at the same time. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God?" End quote. No, they can't. That's why the battle over the sanctity of life is so critical. For Providence Forum, a division of Coral Ridge Ministries, I'm Dr. Jerry Newcombe.